So here I thought, Caroline, we were going to have a quiet tete-a-tete here tonight.
I know, I thought we were just
getting
together.
A lot of our friends got together with us tonight, and it's great to see you. It's great to see your family. It's very nice for them to be here. As I was coming in the hall tonight, a reporter said to me, Lisa, make sure you ask the questions that we want to hear. And that's exactly what we're going to do.
Well, as I was coming in here tonight, my daughter just asked me what's for dinner.
Oh, okay. So I think they don't want to hear that part. Yeah, it's not breaking news for CBC. Caroline's cooking chicken for dinner.
There you go.
But nonetheless, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for putting your name in the ring.
Well,
very happy. Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm excited.
I think there's a lot of people in the room that are excited. So they often say women get involved in politics because something happens. In my case, I got very angry with the Paul Martin government when I was working in Toronto. What's your X factor? What's caused you to want to get into politics at this point in time?
Well, it's the same as you. I got angry. I've been working and raising my family, and I got angry with the Wynne Liberal government. And yeah. I decided that I needed to do something about it, so I put my name forward.
Yeah, and how's it been on the trail so far with the nomination and in the riding?
It's been great. I was nominated in September, and I've been knocking on doors since then. I've got a great team in York Simcoe. A lot of them I see here today. And we've put together a great team, and we've had a great time knocking on doors.
Yeah.
And I know that it's going to continue to grow.
Awesome. And you started by knocking on doors, seeking the nomination. But now we're at a different level.
Yes.
Now you want to be premier of our province. So why now?
So the same reason I wanted to run in the first place, which is I wanted change, and I wanted to do something about it.
Yeah.
And the more I've knocked on doors, the more I've seen how important it is that we do have change at Queen's Park.
Yeah.
And I think for the party, it's an opportunity to have major change, a fresh start. And I think that with my candidacy, we could talk about having generational change at Queen's Park.
Yeah, that's a nice way of saying that Lisa's old now, but that's okay. I'll take that. I'm turning 50 this year, guys. 40 is the new 20, I guess, but I think that's pretty awesome. But as I said, putting your name in the hat is a pretty big endeavor. You've got some important stakeholders sitting behind you tonight. You brought them in with you.
Yes.
What do they think?
Well, when I put my name forward in the first place, we sat down, we had a conversation. Of course, my husband Andrew and I had already discussed it, and we were aligned, and he supported me. For my children, when my father ran, I was 9, and I didn't really understand at the time what had happened to our lives. I actually packed a little lunch for myself, and he said, meet us in Ottawa the next day, and I thought we were coming back.
Yeah.
And that, of course, didn't happen. So our children are a little bit older, and I want to just walk them through it because it was going to be a big change in our lives.
Yeah.
And although I had been working full-time, this was going to mean a lot of, I thought it would be time away, but in fact, we've spent a lot of time together knocking on doors, and a lot of our volunteers have taken them and gone on individually with them, and so it's been great.
Yeah.
I hope to continue that.
When my kids were 7 and 3, I was called into cabinet, and I told this story to Caroline earlier because it's a story about, at the end of the day, we're just working moms when it comes down to it. Mm-hmm. We care about our family, and we decided to take this leap because we want to make other families better.
That's right.
So when I went to Rideau Hall to be called in as a cabinet minister, as my very first interview, I had my sons with me. They were 7 and 3, and the older guy, they were warned within an inch of their lives, don't do anything bad, behave yourself. We had iPads, we had everything going. And they did very well. And then outside, I forgot to tell them that the media, the press, were going to be there. And sure enough, just like tonight, they were standing there with a big crowd among them. And I hadn't told JC not to go towards them. And Rosemary Thompson, who's a lovely lady who worked for years at CTV, was a mom, is a mom, and she was able to attract my 7-year-old over to where the press is. And I could see everybody in PMO going, oh my gosh, what's the 7-year-old going to say? Luckily, it went well. So I can tell you, well, I'm here today, so obviously it went okay. But what I can tell you about that is, you know, people will ask you, your family is young. Is that okay? And what do you say about that?
This is about an opportunity that I think that I need to go for, that we need this change. I've been working so hard, and my children, I'm honest with them about what I'd like to accomplish with my life. We talk openly about it. I respect them, they respect me. And so, you know, they've been supportive, and we've had a great time. And so, as the child of a former politician, I've experienced this myself, and it was a great opportunity for my brothers and me to get to see people making policy decisions and trying to bring change, and so I hope they'll have the same experiences as we did.
And there we go. So you mentioned your father, so I thought I'd bring him up. You know, it's as a woman, I always find it difficult to be recognized as either the spouse of somebody or the daughter of somebody, and it's a bit surprising in this day and age to see some headlines saying that it's not Caroline that's running, it's the daughter of former Prime Minister Brian Mulroney is running. So my question is on that one, what do you say when it's always the first question about your dad and the legacy and whether or not you have an appropriate place because you're just the daughter of a prime minister? What do you say to that?
Well, when I was a teenager, it bothered me a lot, and I remember chatting with someone who worked for my dad about it, and she said, you just have to get used to it. Your entire life, you will always be the daughter of Brian Mulroney, and I'm very proud of that. I'm proud of him. I'm proud of his legacy. I was 19 when he resigned, and so it's been 25 years, and I've been working hard, building a life and a family, and I take a lot of what I learned from our time in Ottawa and what he taught me, but you know, my name's Caroline, and I put my name forward because of what I bring to it, and I learned a lot from my family, just like everybody learns a lot from their own, but I'm bringing my own experience and my own perspective to this.
It's an interesting, and it's a bit of a curious race right now, because if you take a look, all three candidates who have pronounced that they're going to run so far all come from legacy political families when you think about it. Doug Ford, of course, his father sat as a member of provincial parliament. Christine Elliott, she took Jim Flaherty's seat when he left the provincial parliament as well to move to the federal parliament. So it seems as if there's a lot of family orientation when it comes to in this race. Why do you think that's happening? What have you learned over the years?
Well, and from my perspective, I think that, you know, if you grow up with a father or a mother who's a doctor, at the dinner table you talk about medicine, and for us we talked about politics, and we also had the benefit of getting to see our parents working and see all the people around in Ottawa who were working as well, and I came to admire them, and I thought that what they were doing was great work, and so in the back of my head, I always wanted to do it, I guess, and it just, as I was raising children, it wasn't front of mind, top of mind, but I always had great respect for the work that people were doing in Ottawa. Just there's a lot of sacrifice that people made, and they were working really hard, and so I just thought it was I just admired that. So I don't think it's surprising that people end up following in their family footsteps.
No, makes sense. The one of the questions that I always read about you is, you mentioned that your dad was no longer Prime Minister when you were 19 years old. And you said that it's been 25 years since. And I'm just wondering, 19 years old, leaving 24 Sussex, going to university, what was the decision-making like around then?
Well, as I said, I was 9 when he was elected leader, and so 19 when we left Ottawa. And I had worked hard in high school, but was trying to date, and I had Mounties following me everywhere. So I was pretty done. I was ready to have it be over. And you know, I had always imagined that I would go to McGill for university. That had been my dream. But having Mounties following me around, I thought, you know what, this might be a good moment to transition, to try to be a little bit more independent and have a little bit more freedom. So. So 19 was a good time for me to move on. Yeah,
and at Harvard, you didn't have Mounties following you there.
I did not have Mounties. There were a lot of other people who were way more important than me. Corinna Gore was there. I mean, her father was vice president at the time, so it was actually a great opportunity for me to try to be anonymous, and actually to be anonymous for the first time, and I loved it.
And resume-wise, you went to Harvard, and then what happened from there?
Then I wanted to get some financial experience, so I got a job on Wall Street, and that's where I ended up meeting my husband, Andrew, who was also doing the same thing. And then we decided that we were going to be together, and I went to law school at NYU, and I worked at a law firm, and we started having a family.
Yeah.
And when we started having a family, I realized that I needed to be home.
Yeah.
And I was lucky that he wanted to do that. He wanted to try a new place, and so we moved home then.
The way you put it to me earlier, though, when we've talked about this in the past, actually made me understand the decision even more. Having had 2 kids of my own, you said, I had 3 kids in 15 months, and I just wanted to be home.
Yeah.
And I think that makes sense.
That was it.
The ladies in the room can fully understand that.
I needed to get closer. I needed to be home.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So now you've been here in Ontario for about 12 years.
Well, I grew up also in Ontario.
Well, yeah, but since your kids came along, you've been here in Ontario for 12 years. And tell me a little bit about the Wynne government and what your perspective is of the decisions that they've made, and how you think the Progressive Conservative Party can do better.
So the reason I decided that I had to do something was that I was working and raising my family and realizing that we have a government that is making short-term decisions that benefit them in the short term, not decisions that Ontarians need for the long term. And it was... It's the opposite of the way I saw government working in the first place, which is you have to make hard decisions. And they're not always easy, and they're not always going to be popular, and they're not necessarily going to deliver you victory at the polls on election day. But you really, that's why you're elected, to make those decisions, to think long term and think about what people really need. And so it was that sort of self-interest that I saw that was really dominating at Queen's Park, that I thought I'd like to put my name forward and try to bring change.
So do you hear that at the hockey rink when you're out there?
I hear about it all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, people really, really want us to win.
They really do.
They really want us to win.
I agree. So, is that why you chose Let's Get It Done? Now, for Cape Bretoners, I'll tell you, what I always used to say to Caroline is, let's get her done. It's a little bit different.
When we talked about the slogan, I said, that's what Lisa Rait says, but she says, let's get her done.
Let's get her done. Tell me about Let's Get It Done.
I love Let's Get It Done because I put my name forward in September to be part of a team. I saw that the party was growing, and it was really reflective of what Ontario is today. And I thought there was so much, I know there's so much energy among candidates and caucus members to really move forward. I mean, victory is within our sights, and I feel like I'm a part of a team, and I've loved it. So Let's Get It Done means we still have a little bit of work to do, but we can do it. But we're going to do it together, and I'm not going to do it alone. I'm going to do it with all of the candidates who have presented themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't open up a newspaper today, unfortunately, without seeing another allegation of sexual misconduct, sexual harassment in politics, in media, and the workplace. You worked on Wall Street, you worked on Bay Street, you were a lawyer in a law firm, and I share the fact that I've worked in pretty male-dominated industries as well. Have you experienced anything like that?
Well, in my first job experience, I experienced a lot of sexism, just like a lot of the women who worked with me. There weren't that many women at the time in the department that I was in, but and I certainly saw sexism and harassment. But I have been fortunate; I never experienced it myself. But I saw it in business. It's widespread across society.
So does that necessarily mean, though, that the Progressive Conservative Party must have a female leader?
The Progressive Conservative Party needs the right leader.
Yes.
You know, I'm thrilled that there are more and more women coming forward and putting their names forward for public office. It's important that we encourage women, that we encourage girls to think about these careers. Yep. They're not obvious careers, especially when you're in this phase in your life where, just like you're raising children. but that's really important to have our voices heard. At the same time, we can do it. We're doing it on our own, on our own merit, and I'm putting my name forward because I believe that I am the right leader for this time.
Okay. Now, a lot of people called you when they realized that there was going to be a leadership race, and